Hi and welcome, I'm Andy Miocha and you are watching Anewz. Here are the headlines. Poland activates NATO Treaty's Article 4 to consult allies after Russian drone incursion. France hit by nationwide protests and disruptions as new Prime Minister takes office. Iran and the UN's nuclear watchdog reach an agreement to resume nuclear inspections. Thank you for tuning in. Poland has activated Article 4 of the NATO Treaty to allow for consultations with allies, hours after its armed forces downed multiple Russian drones that had entered its airspace. Russia says it did not intend to strike Polish territory, but Warsaw and its allies deemed the incursions deliberate.
Poland activated Article 4 of NATO's treaty on Wednesday after multiple drones entered its airspace during Russian strikes on Ukraine. Warsaw reported that 19 drones crossed its borders, with those posing a direct threat intercepted and neutralized. The incident marks the first known time a NATO member has fired in response to Russia's war in Ukraine. Prime Minister Donald Tusk described the event as the closest we have been to open conflict since World War II, though he stressed there was no immediate risk of war.
We have a full-scale war beyond our Ukrainian-Russian border, but we already have something that goes beyond the bounds of mere provocations in our own skies. And perhaps today we need to say it again very loudly and clearly. Poland today has a political enemy who does not conceal his hostile intentions beyond its eastern border.
NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte called the incursion reckless, but emphasized it was not considered an outright attack.
A full assessment of the incident is ongoing. What is clear is that the violation last night is not an isolated incident. The Supreme Allied Commander will continue to actively manage our deterrence and defense posture along the entire eastern flank. Allies are resolved to defend every inch of Allied territory. We will closely monitor the situation along our eastern flank, our air defenses continually at the ready.
Russia said it did not intend to target Poland, with its defense ministry stating the strikes were aimed at Ukrainian facilities and that the drone's range was limited. The Russian Foreign Ministry accused Poland of spreading myths about the drone incursion to further escalate the Ukrainian crisis, insisting it had not planned to target Polish territory. Polish officials stressed the breach was deliberate. Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski said repeated drone incursions posed a threat to all NATO members and called for stronger measures to safeguard alliance airspace. Emergency teams are investigating sites where drones were downed. The incident is considered the most serious violation of NATO airspace since Russia's war in Ukraine began.
Britain's armed forces will look at options to bolster NATO's air defense over Poland, British Defense Minister John Healey said. After a meeting with defense officials from France, Germany, Italy, Poland, and Ukraine in London, Healey said that Britain, as a NATO ally, will play its part to help secure the safety of Poland. Earlier in the day, he called the violation of Polish and NATO airspace by Russian drones reckless, unprecedented, and dangerous. On the UAV incursion into Poland and the NATO response, we're talking with Julia O'Connell of the Dignitas Fund, joining us from New York. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, NATO jets were scrambled to respond, and they did, in a first since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion on Ukraine. We've heard quite a few reactions. Russians originally said they did not intend to strike targets in Poland. German defense chief has, on the other hand, said this was a deliberate provocation of NATO. What do you make of the initial response to the incident?
Well, 19 drones, to say that it was not intentional, it's very much reminds me immediately of the annexation of Crimea and invasion in Donbass. If you remember, annexation of Crimea was also with the green people. They call green polite people. They call them by Russian, and they completely denied that it was Russian soldiers. They didn't have even the signs on their uniform that they were Russians. Same in Donetsk region. And I just want to let everybody know I'm actually originally from Donetsk, so I remember those times in 2014 when Russia was sending their troops and sending their war equipment into Donbass, but they were fully denying that they were even involved. And over time, they, when the time comes, they admit. So that's, very, very first thought that I had. It's very similar of Russian behavior. They're going to deny 19 drones. That's not an accident. Accident happened before. Poland, both Poland and Romania, they did experience accidents. That was reported, but this with 19 drones for 3 hours, it's an attack. The reason for those attacks we can talk about, but that was not an accident. And Russia is as usual lying and denying is only very, very common and very expected behavior from Russia.
Well, as Warsaw invoked the Article 4 of the NATO's Treaty for Emergency Consultations, the American ambassador to NATO said U.S. will defend every inch of Allied territory. Donald Trump weighed in on his social media, writing, "Here we go," followed by an exclamation mark. How likely is it that this incident wasn't just reckless behavior, as you were talking about earlier, but Russia perhaps testing the waters?
Russia's definitely testing the waters. They're definitely trying to see the reaction. Putin is definitely bolstered by his meetings in Shanghai with Xi Jinping and other and North Korean leader who agreed to, still send his military support to Russia. So yes, they're testing. The one part I think that people tend to overlook right now, that Russia is did not have a very successful attack during offensive during summer, and they need actually they lost a lot of troops, a lot of people trying to do that advancement, and they do need mobilization, and mobilization is extremely unpopular in Russia. That's number one. Number two, the Russian economy is stagnating. So this is also part of the Putin tactics to increase his popularity inside of the country, to show that he is strong, that he can attack NATO, and for internal audience conversations and evoking Article 4 is not going to mean much. But for him, mobilizing his internal resources is actually very significant. And also, so it's like double sword. He's testing Europe, but also selling this as a very successful advancement for the internal audience. So that should not be kind of overlooked. Yes, the Article 4, evoking Article 4, having more consultation, that what they really, Ukraine would be hoping that Patriot systems would be used on the borders, will be used to protect Ukrainian western side, that we in Ukraine can use Patriot systems better at the eastern part or central eastern part. So yeah, this is definitely an escalation, but it's also definitely definitely a reason to unify and to do more in terms of deterring aggression and Putin, and not letting the full-scale war in Europe to break.
Yulia, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
The drone incursion into Poland was also addressed in the European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen's State of the Union speech. Other highlights included the war in Gaza and a divisive new trade deal with the United States. Our Anita Sharma has the details.
Welcome to This Day in Europe, where European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen delivered a forceful State of the Union address in Strasbourg. As Europe reels from a Russian drone incursion into Poland, she also confronted the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, defended the controversial US-EU trade deal, and pitched bold industrial and defense strategies, all while facing sharp criticism over coherence and solidarity. Addressing the European Parliament, von der Leyen condemned what she called a reckless and unprecedented violation of Polish and European airspace, citing the overnight entry of more than 10 Russian drones, some of which were downed by NATO aircraft. She called for greater pressure on Russia and said the EU must be able to defend its territory, shape its economy, and lead on values. Key proposals included a €6 billion drone alliance with Ukraine, a reparations loan using frozen Russian assets, and a proposed €800 billion Readiness 2030 defense investment plan. Regarding the Israeli-Gaza conflict, von der Leyen broke from previous restraint, proposing sanctions on what she called extremist Israeli ministers and violent settlers, a partial suspension of the trade elements of the EU-Israel Association Agreement, and halting bilateral support while preserving ties with civil society and Holocaust memorials. This marks a pivotal shift in EU diplomacy toward decisiveness on Gaza, but there are internal divisions, especially from Germany, Hungary, and other cautious countries. Meantime, Israel's foreign minister called her comments regrettable. On trade, von der Leyen defended the contentious deal with the U.S., saying it was the best possible deal, avoiding harsher tariffs on EU exports while preserving vital access to the U.S. market. It's important to note that many lawmakers and citizens see Europe conceding too much on digital regulation, environmental standards, and tech autonomy, raising alarms about a diminishing EU industrial sovereignty in exchange for short-term tranquility. While not detailed in full, von der Leyen reiterated her long-standing call for strategic autonomy, urging Europe to invest in clean tech, semiconductor capacity, and resilient supply chains. She warned the bloc can no longer rely passively on allies or competitors. In today's State of the Union, von der Leyen painted a bold vision of European independence, responding to Russian aggression, Gaza's humanitarian collapse, and economic churn. Yet, the speech laid bare the EU's enduring structural weaknesses. Words may rally attention, but real autonomy requires unity, financial muscle, and treaty-level tools the bloc has yet to muster. I'm Anita Sharma, reporting for Anewz from Arnhem, Netherlands.
Over in France, protesters set fires as they blocked highways and gas stations across the country as part of a new nationwide Block Everything movement. Authorities deployed 80,000 police officers who made hundreds of arrests and fired tear gas to disperse crowds. The unrest follows the collapse of the government earlier this week over proposed budget cuts.
At roundabouts, on highways and outside high schools, protesters blocked traffic and faced down riot police in cities across France. In Paris, tear gas was fired at youth demonstrators outside a lycée, while on the capital's ring road, groups tried to slow traffic. The mobilization began online under the slogan "Block Everything," quickly spreading on social media. Initially linked to right-wing groups, analysts say the movement has since been taken over by left and far-left activists, fueling comparisons with the 2018 Yellow Vest protests. The government is taking no chances. Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau says 80,000 police have been deployed nationwide, including 6,000 in Paris, amid warnings that up to 100,000 people could join in, targeting airports, train stations and highways.
I'm here because this illegitimate government must be blocked. We don't want a war market. We don't want austerity. We want money for public services. We want money for schools, for hospitals.
Union leaders argue the protests reflect frustration with Macron's economic reforms and rising defence spending. For many, the appointment of Sébastien Lecornu as France's fifth Prime Minister in less than 2 years has only deepened the anger.
It's the same. It's Macron who's the problem, not the ministers. He has to go. He has to think about it seriously.
qu'il parte.
Demonstrations have been reported in Marseille, Lyon, Montpellier and Nantes, with roadblocks, cable fires and overturned bins disrupting traffic. Vinci, the highway operator, confirmed widespread delays across southern and western France. The protests come against the backdrop of political turmoil. Just 2 days ago, Beirut's government fell in parliament over a budget plan to cut 44 billion euros from public spending. Macron has now tasked Lecornu with forming a new administration, while opposition parties prepare no-confidence motions. The scale of disruption remains uncertain. Police report arrests are mounting, blockades are spreading, and security forces remain on alert as the Block Everything protests continue across France.
To the Middle East now, where at least 9 people were killed and 118 others injured in Israeli strikes on Yemen, according to the country's health ministry. The Israeli military said the fresh strikes targeted military camps of Houthi operatives, while the Yemeni armed forces stated they managed to stop a large part of the Israeli attack with air defenses. The attacks come a day after the Israeli army said it intercepted a rocket launched from Yemen, which in turn came hours after the Israeli bombardment of Doha in an attempt to assassinate high-ranking Hamas officials. President of the UAE is in Qatar for a previously unscheduled visit in a show of regional solidarity with Doha following Tuesday's Israeli strikes on the Qatari capital. Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan was welcomed by Qatar's Emir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. Local media reports that Abu Dhabi reaffirmed its solidarity with Qatar and support for its sovereignty and territorial integrity. The UAE condemned the Israeli strike as a criminal act. More visits to Doha are expected, including the crown princes of Saudi Arabia and Jordan. Numerous world leaders have condemned Israel's airstrike in Doha after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed he had ordered what he called a surgical precision strike on Hamas leaders in Qatar.
Smoke rising above Doha's skyline, verified video shows the aftermath of an Israeli strike on Tuesday afternoon. Israel says 15 fighter jets carried out the raid, firing 10 munitions at a single site said to house Hamas's top negotiators.
At noon today, I convened the heads of Israel's security organizations and authorized a surgical precision strike on the terrorist chiefs of Hamas. These are the same terrorist chiefs who planned, launched, and celebrated the horrific massacres of October 7th.
Hamas says its leaders survived but confirmed 6 deaths, including Humam al-Hayya, son of exiled Gaza chief Halil al-Hayya and senior aide Jihad Labad. A Qatari security officer was also killed.
The leadership of the movement survived this cowardly attempt, but a group of martyrs ascended, including brother Jihad Labad and Humam al-Hayya.
Qatar's Prime Minister denounced the strike, but vowed Doha's role as mediator will continue.
The attack was a 100% treacherous act. Mediation in Qatari diplomacy is part of its identity, and nothing will deter us from persisting in this role.
Condemnation has poured in. France's Emmanuel Macron called the strikes unacceptable, whatever the reason. Britain's Keir Starmer said they violated Qatar's sovereignty and risked further escalation. Spain, Canada and Ireland voiced similar concerns, while the UN Secretary-General urged a permanent ceasefire, not destroying it. In Washington, President Donald Trump said he was very unhappy with the strike, though he maintained eliminating Hamas remains a worthy goal. The White House later confirmed he had directed envoy Steve Witkoff to warn Qatar, though too late to stop the attack.
Well, I'm not thrilled. I'm not thrilled about it. I will say this, we want the hostages back, but we are not thrilled about the way that went down today.
A short time later, the White House sought to clarify Washington's position, stressing support for Qatar while acknowledging Israel's objectives.
Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States, that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals, and feels very badly about the location of this attack.
Qatar has hosted Hamas's political bureau since 2012 and has been central to ceasefire negotiations. Sources say the targeted officials were reviewing a US-backed truce proposal when the strike hit. That plan would see remaining hostages freed in exchange for Palestinian prisoners and talks on a permanent ceasefire. Regional diplomats say discussions on the US-backed truce proposal are still scheduled to resume later this week.
Pakistan has declared a state of emergency as weeks of monsoon flooding swept through multiple provinces. The floods have threatened major crops and forced mass rescues in the largest city, Karachi. The death toll from rain-related incidents in the city rose to 6.
Karachi, the largest city of Pakistan and the country's financial hub, is now being tested by the monsoon season. The city was lashed by heavy downpours as the second wave of monsoon rains hit, with Sajani town receiving the highest rainfall, 129.8 millimetres over the past 24 hours. Layari and Malir rivers serve as Karachi's main storm drains, channeling rainwater through a network of nullahs into the Arabian Sea. The death toll from rain-related incidents in Karachi rose to 6 on Wednesday. Most of the deaths occurred due to collapsing structures, drowning and electrocution during the 3 days of rain, according to hospital officials. Residents in Karachi said they were worried about the flooding in the country as the ongoing monsoon brought about heavy rains and inundated city roads.
It has been raining since last night and all the dams are full. Now the water is coming into our town. There is water everywhere and people are suffering. It's still pouring heavily and the whole area looks flooded.
It has been raining heavily here for the past 3 days, and since last night it hasn't stopped at all. The roads are flooded because the dams are overflowing. It's a worrying situation, not just for the people here, but also for the government and the entire country. People are suffering losses because they can't move around, and many are also facing problems with their jobs. Everyone is very worried.
Rescue operations continued throughout the night to move rain-affected individuals to safe locations. Rescue teams, in coordination with district administration, successfully relocated over 350 citizens to safer areas.
The UN has launched a 4-month emergency response plan worth $140 million to assist nearly 500,000 people affected by the recent devastating earthquake in eastern Afghanistan. Our Tamim Bahis has more on that in Kabul.
The earthquake struck Kunar, Laghman and Nangarhar provinces with a magnitude above 6, followed by 3 strong aftershocks. More than 2,200 people lost their lives and around 3,600 were injured. Over 6,700 homes were either destroyed or damaged, leaving thousands of families displaced in unsafe and makeshift shelters. Many households also lost their food supplies and now face limited access to clean water, health services and sanitation. Schools, clinics and essential infrastructure were also badly affected. The United Nations emergency plan aims to reach 457,000 people by the end of the year. Relief operations have already begun, with humanitarian organizations and local authorities delivering food, tents, blankets, warm clothing and clean water. Mobile health and nutrition teams are being deployed along with medical supplies to the worst hit areas. Humanitarian partners are focusing on the needs of vulnerable groups, including women and children, while also preparing communities in high-altitude areas for the winter season. The plan includes shelter support, water and sanitation, food assistance, protection services, education and agriculture and livestock aid to help safeguard lives and livelihoods. The United Nations is calling for urgent international support to ensure families impacted by the earthquake receives life-saving assistance before winter sets in. Tamim Bahis reporting for Anewz from Kabul, Afghanistan.
Iran and the UN nuclear watchdog said on Tuesday they had reached a deal that should pave the way for a full resumption of inspections interrupted by the Israeli and US military strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities in June. Tehran warned the West there would no longer be a deal if UN sanctions were to be reimposed.
Iran and the International Atomic Energy Agency have reached an agreement to restart inspections of Tehran's nuclear sites. The deal, signed in Cairo, sets out practical mechanisms that comply with Iranian law passed after US and Israeli attacks in June suspended inspections. Arakchi said the understanding reflects Iran's exceptional security circumstances.
I shall stress that in case of any hostile act against my country, and in the event of reimposition of terminated United Nations Security Council resolutions, Iran will regard these practical steps as terminated.
Arakchi said the understanding reflects Iran's exceptional security circumstances while meeting the technical requirements of the UN nuclear watchdog. IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi welcomed the development.
This is a step in the right direction. This is a door we are opening. And of course, there are many things that still need to happen. We have to implement it in good faith. Others around the world can help us. And I am sure that they will do right that.
The agreement comes as France, Britain and Germany have begun a 30-day process to restore sanctions lifted under the 2015 nuclear deal unless Iran fully resumes inspections, accounts for its near weapons-grade uranium and re-engages in talks with the United States. State media said the deal finalizes how Iran will implement its safeguards obligations, marking a rare moment of cooperation after months of tension.
For more on the Iranian perspective on the deal reached in Cairo, we go to Tehran and our Turaj Shiralilu.
Following months of strained relations between Tehran and the UN nuclear agency, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and the IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi signed a framework deal to pave the way for resuming cooperation, including relaunching of inspections. After signing of the agreement in Cairo, mediated by the government of Egypt, Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baqai said that both sides agreed on new cooperation in the wake of the attacks on Iran's civilian nuclear sites last June. Araghchi said at the joint news conference the agreement addresses Tehran's security concerns and lays out technical requirements for cooperation with the IAEA. And Grossi wrote in a post on X that the agreement is a step in the right direction without providing further details, but he told reporters that it is technical in nature. Iran experts hold that the agreement may ease the standoff between Tehran and the European powers, France, Germany and the UK, which are parties to the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, JCPOA, and have referred their dispute with Tehran to the UN Security Council for return of UN sanctions. The EU Foreign Policy Chief, Kaja Kallas, in a post on X, cautiously welcomed the Cairo agreement and said the deal for resuming inspections of Iran's nuclear facilities could mark a crucial step for nuclear diplomacy, provided that there is rapid implementation by Iran. However, Araghchi warned that in the event of any hostile act against Iran, including the reimposition of UN sanctions, Tehran would regard the agreement with the IAEA as terminated. In the meantime, Iran's permanent mission to the UN office in Vienna, in an explanatory note, reiterated Iran's commitment to NPT, but rejected Grossi's recent reports to the ongoing IAEA Board of Governors meeting as out of legal context and based on distorted narrations. Following the board's quarterly report on Tehran's non-compliance in June, Iran's parliament suspended cooperation with the UN nuclear agency, arguing that the report served as a pretext to attack Iran's nuclear sites under UN safeguards by Israel and the US. Turaj Shiralilu, reporting for Anewz TV, Tehran.
Turkey has been named as the global leader in crypto ownership for the third year in a row. According to a report by We Are Social and Meltwater, 1 in 4 Turks owns or has traded cryptocurrencies. Finance professionals, tech workers, and students make up the bulk of crypto users. Unexpectedly, retirees over 60 now account for about 12% of all investors. Turkey is followed by Brazil, South Africa, and Nigeria, countries with similarly large informal economies. Georgia's upcoming October 4th local elections will take place without international observers from the OSCE. The organization says the Georgian government's last-minute invitation made effective observation impossible. Arnini Nikolaishvili reports from Tbilisi.
The OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, the main European election observation body, explained that a credible mission requires early preparation and access to all stages of the electoral process. With the Georgian government's invitation arriving less than a month before election day, the office announced it will not deploy observers. This setback comes against the backdrop of growing political tensions in Georgia. Just days ago, the Ministry of Internal Affairs expanded its investigation into a violent confrontation outside the headquarters of ruling party figure Ahak Aladze. The case now includes charges of violence during pre-election agitation. Opposition voices warn of deeper risks. Leilo's Strong Georgia leader Taza Datunashvili compared the current climate to the early 1990s, accusing the ruling party of staging civil conflict and dehumanizing opponents. Former President Salome Zurabishvili, speaking from Washington, dismissed the October 4 vote as nothing more than a simulation of elections, criticizing the opposition's divisions over whether to participate or not. With the OSCE now stepping back, Georgia faces its October 4 elections under greater scrutiny than ever, both from its own citizens and from the international community. It's Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, Anewz.
Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan is expected to visit Moscow at the end of the month for the World Atomic Week. Local media are reporting that he may also hold a meeting with Russia's Vladimir Putin. Officials in Yerevan said details of Pashinyan's trips will be announced at the proper time as the Moscow gathering prepares to bring together leaders from countries advancing their nuclear programs. The second day of the 13th Sika think tank forum here in Baku focused on the organization's transformation and capacity building, with delegates sharing their insights and recommendations.
The second day of the 13th meeting of the think tank forum of the Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building Measures in Asia took place today in Baku, bringing together experts, officials and delegates from across Asia to finalize discussions from the 2 days. The focus was on CICA's transformation and capacity building. Panelists and analysts presented proposals on a wide range of issues, including increasing public awareness of CICA, deepening political dialogue, promoting peace in conflict-affected countries, and advancing mutual benefits among member states. Other key topics included food insecurity, climate change, secure safety networks, and cultural cohesion. The sessions concluded with an open discussion, allowing delegates to exchange questions and insights. In his remarks, Kairat Saribay, CICA Secretary-General, highlighted ongoing priorities such as terrorism, environmental challenges, ICTs, youth engagement, and the role of women, emphasizing that CCA remains a people-to-people organization with a soft power approach. The closing ceremony, moderated by Farid Shafiev, chairman of the board of the Center for Analysis of International Relations, finalized key outcomes of the forum. Shafiev underlined Azerbaijan's commitment to the forum and the importance it places on fostering regional cooperation, with the participants expressing optimism about CICA's growing impact in Asia.
And this is the first time for CICA-TTF to be holding outside of China, so for me it's a great honor to be here. I find this think tank forum and also the CICA as a whole a very comprehensive and very innovative and very effective mechanism.
I think the 13th CICA think tank forum is an important platform to discuss the potential of CICA in fostering regional cooperation among the Asian countries. As you know that the world is facing a lot of geopolitical uncertainty in the last few years, and there is tension at the individual country level, and all the regional institutions are working towards restoring peace, stability in the region, and also reviving the multilateral processes and institutions.
Following the ceremony, a side event titled The Shaping of a New Asian Order explored youth and women empowerment in CICA's transformation, featuring young speakers from different countries. Overall, the forum underscored regional cooperation, dialogue, and inclusive development as central to CICA's ongoing evolution.
Finnish president is set to visit Tashkent for talks aimed at deepening political and economic cooperation as Uzbekistan steps up engagement with Europe. Our Sevilla Rajapova has the details.
Finnish President Alexander Stubb will pay an official visit to Uzbekistan following a telephone conversation with President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. The two leaders discussed trade, economic cooperation, humanitarian projects and preparations for the visit, highlighting the positive momentum in political dialogue and interparliamentary exchanges. Since 2022, the Finnish Nordic University has been operating in Uzbekistan, alongside joint projects in school education. The leaders also pointed to new opportunities in agriculture, chemicals, energy, mining, telecommunications and education technology. An intergovernmental commission meeting and a business forum will be held to ensure practical results. The visit takes place as Uzbekistan strengthens its ties with Europe. This October, Uzbekistan and the European Union are set to sign enhanced partnership cooperation agreement in Brussels, while the European Union has already announced a $13.2 billion investment plan for Central Asia. In 2024, Uzbekistan's trade with the European Union reached about $6.4 billion, with more than 1,000 European companies active in the country. Finland's export to Uzbekistan stood at $167 million, with total trade turnover at $173 million. The upcoming visit of President Stubb is expected to give new momentum to long-term cooperation between Finland and Uzbekistan. It is Sevilla Rajapova reported from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, Anewz.
President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, is in Kazakhstan for a state visit. Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev hosted Tshisekedi at the presidential palace for talks on expanding economic and cooperation on international security. Our Fariza Kalimurzina has more.
An official welcoming ceremony was held at Akorda for the President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, who arrived in Kazakhstan on a state visit. For Kazakhstan, the DRC is considered a key partner on the African continent, with a population of over 110 million and significant natural and human resources. The country is becoming more active on the international stage. According to President Tokayev, expanding cooperation with African countries is now one of the priorities in Kazakhstan's foreign policy. President Tshisekedi said his visit aims not only to build bilateral relations, but also to promote stronger ties between Africa and Central Asia as a whole. A key focus is cooperation in natural resource processing. The DRC is rich in cobalt and copper, while Kazakhstan holds large uranium reserves. According to global data, the DRC accounts for 76% of the world's cobalt production and 14% of copper. Tshisekedi emphasized that both countries have a real opportunity to develop joint processing projects directly on their own soil. This, he said, could open the door to new economic growth and long-term cooperation. Despite the 8,000-kilometer distance, economic ties between Kazakhstan and the DRC are gradually developing. Diplomatic relations were officially launched in 2022, and last year trade between the two countries reached nearly $5 million. Kazakhstan exports tools, equipment, machinery and chemical products, while importing rare metal ores, coffee, plastics and IT components from Africa. Cooperation between the two countries goes beyond just trade. In 2022, Kazakhstan sent its military personnel to the Democratic Republic of the Congo as part of a United Nations peacekeeping mission. If the two countries continue to find common ground, geography will no longer be a barrier, especially as their partnership already goes far beyond economics. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, Anewz.
That's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned to Anewz.